main driver for that growth, do you think?
So it's in a good market.
What was your reason for joining that?
Okay, that's a good question. I do a fair bit of speaking. I quite like talking.
One thing I saw about you that I think is really interesting. You've got an interesting buying businesses, I believe.
Yes.
On this episode of The Engaging Marketeer, I am speaking to David Roberts, who is the MD of New Heat and also the host of the People with Purpose podcast. Try saying that when you haven't got your teeth in. David bought into New Heat some years ago and took it from, well, let's just say a certain amount of turnover to a much larger turnover, and then sold the business on. So I'm going to be speaking to David and finding out exactly how he did that, how he raised the money to do that, and how he increased the turnover of the business and then sold it. We met, I believe, on the Progressive Speakers course, didn't we?
We did. We met there. Yeah.
And what was your reason for joining that?
Okay, that's a good question. I do a fair bit of speaking. I quite like talking, and I found myself spending a lot of time preparing. And I think preparation is important. It's important to really be really clear on what your message is, and to make sure that what you say is going to have the desired response. But yeah, I was taking a lot of time to prepare. So what interested me in that was, I suppose, two things really. One was a system, to be able to have a system in your mind where you can structure what it is you want to say with maximum impact, but I suppose minimum prep time, I guess. And the other thing as well about that was the community. You got a real sense that actually when people speak with impact, what the thing that really stands out is the story. And the ability to find a safe place where you can kind of explore your own stories, and also, be very, very fortunate to be trusted, if you like, to be a participant whilst other people kind of unravel and expose their stories as well. And these don't have to be mega deep things. They can be actually, sometimes it's the most interesting things are where somebody has a kind of a moment of revelation, because they start to talk about something and they realize something about themselves. And so it sort of created that kind of an environment where you could really explore some of that stuff. So that's why I did it. And quite like talking.
And is that something that you've always had an interest in?
Yeah, I think, well, I've always had an interest in people. I've always had an interest in communication. And how people, interact with each other, and so it was as much about the other parts of communication as the speaking part, the body language, and how it's interesting if you sit. I've sat with my mum, not recently actually. I must put this in my diary: is to sit with my mum in a cafe or at a train station and just watch the world go by, and people watching is a fascinating thing to do. That I really need to make more time for. But then when you then get to a company that with a conversation and really get to kind of explore, the whys and the wherefores around, somebody else's opinions, behaviors, passions. And all of those sorts of things, then it really kind of unlocks a new understanding of what the human, condition, if you like, is all about.
Yeah, I mean, when I joined the speaking course, I know there were some people there that were there because they needed more confidence to talk in public. They needed it maybe for their job, or they wanted to do sort of selling or presentations. I wasn't there for the confidence because I had all the confidence in the world. Not a lot of the technique, but all the confidence in the world. So it was more, as you mentioned, it was about the structure and how to say what you want to say. And indeed the silence and the body language as well, not to fill the void with because you're just worried that somebody's going to interrupt or it's not going to be listened to. What how have you used the skills that you picked up from that in your everyday world?
So uh, so in when talking, so when speaking as a speaker, I've used it to good effect, actually, to structure a message. It's very easy to fall into the trap of assuming that other people are gonna get what you're talking about straight away. So learning the value of uh, using some time that you've got with somebody else, whether you're speaking to an audience or one to one, to I guess provide that sort of context, and in a conversation to create that sort of shared context, if you like, and that rapport. Something I've kind of done naturally, I guess. I'm naturally curious about people, but quite often using the word I, that's a sort of something that I, there you go, doing it again, would do quite a lot. And realizing that actually, if you use the word you make it about them, and there's things that you can do with how you structure sentences to, you know, I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where, and you can completely flip it on its head. And when you're running businesses, when you're in any kind of relationship with somebody else, the other person knows that you care, but you kind of, or whether you care or not, almost instinctively. But if you can tailor the way that you approach the conversation and the words that you use to keep reinforcing that sense that it's about them, or in a conversation down the pub, it's as much about them as it is about you. Then that creates a whole new level of trust between people. It often becomes mirrored. I found that the more I've made it about other people, they've actually then been more interested in me and sort of why I'm there, and all of that as well, because of the law of reciprocity. I can't believe I got that word out in first time. I'm not going to try it again. Kicks in, because then the natural sort of subconscious human responses, because we are naturally designed, as long as our fear center isn't ignited by kind of aggression or kind of direct closed questioning, we're naturally curious as people. We've just sort of forgotten that. So if you can bring that naturally, not in a manipulative way, because it's not about manipulation, it's about genuine curiosity. Well, yeah, okay. So manipulation, that's an interesting topic to explore.
You brought it up.
But yeah, I suppose when you're in a situation where you're looking to get to a certain outcome, that's about meeting people at where they're at, and yeah, so you create an environment where other people feel comfortable. You could look at that as being manipulative, or you could look at that as laying the ground as the best way to be able to serve somebody else and to help them.
Yeah, to help them. I mean, you're right. I mean, the number of times I've heard people do presentations at networking meetings or business meetings, sales meetings, and every time they start with, here's something about me. Here's where I started. Here's some information you need to know about my family. Here's where we did that. Nobody gives a flying monkeys about any of that stuff. Whereas I get quite angry about it, but I don't realize that, these people haven't done the kind of training that you and I have done. They don't know about the importance of the you focus. And that if you start by telling the story about you and how it can impact you and how it can affect you and change you, somebody's going to buy into it and they're going to listen. Whereas if you just start with me, we, I, people switch off immediately. Not everybody is aware of that.
Yeah. And there are some really lovely people who are well-meaning and want to be able to help others, who find themselves frustrated because they always seem to fall at the first hurdle. That I can't get through to them, and all of that. And my personal view is a lot of it is is about that. It's about the kind of language that you're using that kind of almost puts a barrier between you and somebody else. And then the more that happens, potentially, the more that flows through in your physiology, the more that kind of anxiety about wanting to be able to connect, the whole thing about smelling desperation on somebody else, and it kind of being something that sort of puts you off. Actually, if you can turn that around a little bit, if you can, do what I'm doing now, really, and talk about somebody else, and relate your story in a kind of a way that is, I suppose more accessible, more engaging, and brings other people into the story, then you get that response. You see the evidence that flows through the experience of making that breakthrough with somebody else, and then the next time, or maybe the time after that, a couple of winning interactions with others, that confidence starts to build, and then the physiology changes completely, and you begin to feel more confident in those interactions. And yes, it's crucially important. Important.
And then it becomes second nature. You end up doing it without even realizing that you're doing it. It's the unconscious competence thing again.
Yeah, exactly. And that was a good thing about actually being part of a group of people who are learning that about each other and giving each other feedback. And in that speaking community, feedback being the breakfast of champions. Yeah. I've always been very, very into that, and have asked for feedback, and I don't know where that comes from, really. I guess if I look at the environment I grew up in, there was a lot of open conversation, a lot of open questioning, and so feel very fortunate from that point of view to have had that kind of a bunk up to being open to that kind of feedback. But actually, then again, going into a business context and creating an environment where everyone feels comfortable giving and receiving feedback, that's been a real focus of mine, because that is how you learn, making observations about how other people have done in different situations, not in a criticism for criticism's sake type way, but in a way that moves the whole thing forwards.
It's how you get better, isn't it? It's how you get better. I mean, if you don't if you don't ask for feedback, if you don't receive feedback on something, then you're just going to keep doing the same thing you always did, and it's just going to keep on not working. I remember when we used to do proposals for websites for clients for years, and we'd always have, right at the beginning, was about us. And this is who we are in the history of the company. And it wasn't until we had this big revelation of feedback. I think it was Andy Bounds, sales trainer, that did it. And it was like, don't start with that. Nobody gives a shit about that. Put that right at the end. Start with about them, about where they are now and where they want to be. And if we carried on doing that, we'd have probably had low conversions, maybe 20-30% of all sales. But you need that feedback to know when you're doing better. One thing I saw about you that I think is really interesting, you've got an interest in buying businesses, I believe.
Yes.
It's something we're getting into as well. So I'd love to know a bit more about that. Where did that passion start from, and how did you first get into it?
So I started off my career in very much a conventional way, being getting a job, being an employee, and
the boring way that we're told that that's the way we should do things in society.
Yeah, definitely. And for a good few years it worked. I learned a lot, and developed some skills and made some mistakes on somebody else's time and money, and so got me education that way around. But when you're sort of you see the CEO stood up there and they're talking about the company and the mission and all of that, and with real passion and desire, and you're sat there in the audience as an employee and you think, do you know what? I'd love to work for the company that he's talking about or she's talking about, but the company that I'm working for feels absolutely nothing like that. And that happened to me a couple of times in a couple of companies, and it was that point where I realized that actually, what was important to me was creating an environment where, as the MD, as the CEO, when you're talking about the business, it's authentic and it's real, and it can't feel like it 100% of the time, but most of the time it feels like that kind of an environment. And that sort of tied in with, I suppose, a bit of a realization that the thing that floats my boat more than anything else really is seeing people do things they didn't think they were capable of. So I was, then going after that opportunity to, in business, um, you know, to create that kind of role for myself, that opportunity for myself. And in truth, I'm probably more of a scale up type person than a startup type person. So I have started businesses, and that the one in particular is doing really well, and I'm not involved with it anymore. They're doing really well, but I actually have more success with helping founders perhaps who would like to move on, like to retire. They've got a business to a certain level, but really needs some support and help with picking it up and taking it on further. And if you can do that as an investor in that business, as opposed to an employee, then, well, one, you are invested both from a kind of a financial point of view, but also they talk about having some skin in the game, don't they? It kind of sharpens the focus on building it, and the whole phrase, you got to own it. Well, when you do own it, you really do have to own it, and it brings a different kind of a mindset and a different kind of a impetus to your role, to your daily walk, and that accountability for a business which is there to solve a problem and make people's lives better, and not just the people who that business serves, but the people who work in that business, is something that, again, is a real privilege. So I love doing that, either as a kind of an MD or as a like a non-exec director or a chair or an advisor. I really do enjoy that experience.
So how did you get into something like that?
Well, I left a job to join another one, and my boss at that time said to me, what the boss I was leaving said, look, I couldn't really talk to you about this when you were an employee, but you really need to talk to these people over here, because again, it was a these founders who wanted to create that opportunity for themselves to retire. So I spoke to them, and nothing happened straight away. But a couple of years later, that's when I then got involved and bought into it, put the house on it, and all of that sort of stuff, and then worked hard to make it a success. So it comes back to the whole be, do, have thing for me. So if you want to have certain things, you've got to do certain things, but the way it starts is with the person that you are, and how you are, the person that you need to be, and if you can start to be that person, whether you're an employee or whatever, then be the person that goes the extra mile, be the person that shows that willingness, that desire, to really make a difference, to really move things forward. Be true to yourself and to your values. That's the other thing, really, is the thing that would cause me to move from job to job was if I didn't see an alignment, between my values and the values of the organization. If I saw the alignment and it was written down, great. That was a good starting point. I would then have some fertile ground to work with, if you like, to agitate, to make those values come to life. But then if I didn't see any movement from anyone else, then once I'd tried, I then had to move on. And in a way, that became part of the story. Values-driven businesses who aligned with my evolving, as it's always evolving, picture of what the purpose of my life was all about. And yeah, just I suppose if you be the person that you want to be, almost before you get there, it's not a fake it till you make it. In the NLP world, they talk about act as if,
Right.
and that's about, in a way, evolving that confidence to be the person that you want to be, just before you get there. If you think about the kind of the sprinter who wants to win an Olympic gold medal, they're in a way they're an Olympic gold medalist in their head before they've crossed the finish line in the final. They've had that as part of their personality, as part of their makeup, as part of like I say, their vision of who they are, and that has then flown into the things that they've done consistently, day in, day out, for years, probably 5 a.m, going to the track and doing the reps and all that kind of stuff. That's then flowed into then that moment that's happened when they've crossed the finish line as the Olympic champion. And so you've got to be it. I think that's the main thing.
Yeah. And were you investing? Was it just time, or were you investing money into businesses as well?
Yeah, both. I mean, when I had no money, it was purely time. So as an employee on a salary, your opportunities to invest in the business that you're working in, they're fairly limited. You need to show what you can do, and then there's different ways of accessing equity in a business. You can buy it. You can do a really good job and potentially be given some, either through share options or something like that. You can come up with an idea for how a business could potentially diversify or go in a slightly different direction, and then have a conversation with the owner, your boss, whoever it might be, about, okay, well, if we set this up, then what's the equity structure going to look like? There's things that you can do to engineer that opportunity for yourself, and then there's other ways which kind of replicate ownership, but in sort of long-term incentive plans and all those sorts of things. So it's about having the confidence really to put yourself forwards, knowing that you can really make a difference. And that's why, for me, starting off as an employee, and basically we all work for somebody, whether you own the business or not. You're working for the bank, you're working for your investors, whatever it is. So that was really helpful for me to kind of test and grow. Spent a lot of time putting forward what looked on the face of it to be really good ideas that were not picked up and not taken forward. Looked at every no as a kind of as an opportunity to learn, until it got to the point where it seemed apparent that none of these things were ever going to come off. So it was time to count your losses and move on. But yeah, so and even then, when I first invested in a company, it wasn't my own money. I had to borrow it to do it. So yeah.
How easy was that to raise capital?
Well, I had to raise money against the house, which is why I kind of, when they say we put the house on it, that's kind of
You literally put the house
literally put the house on it. Yeah. When they say we put the house on it, that's kind of
You literally put the house
literally put the house on it. Yeah. You know what? My wife's amazing. She's absolutely she's just amazing. And the conversations that we had about it were detailed. She's quite different to me, and from the point of view of detailed questioning, I can get quite excited and go skipping gaily off up the hill. We're going this way, and then realize it was the wrong decision. So she asked me some brilliant questions, and really, really tested me on it. But ultimately, she backed me.
What sort of questions did she ask?
Oh, this is quite a while ago now. I'd say, let me think. So she asked me, is this another one of your whims? Is this another one of your fascinations?
Oh,
is this a fad that's going to pass?
ouch.
Who do you know who's done anything like this before? Who you could talk to get some advice? that was a brilliant question, actually. Actually, that is a really great question. And I spoke to somebody who I knew had been on a similar journey, and I got some
What
really good
industry
advice.
was this, by the way? What industry was it?
Heat. So this one was heating, underfloor heating.
Oh, is this the new heat business?
This is new heat. Yeah,
Ah,
yeah. So and then she said, and this was part of the negotiation. She said, "Well, you can do it, but I just need to draw a picture." So she drew a picture of our house, and on the back of our house, she's an artist. She drew an extension on the back of our house with kind of these big kind of like a gable end on it with sort of beautiful sort of glass windows and a view into the fields and all that kind of stuff. And she kind of then did loads of squiggly lines on the floor, and she wrote "new heat underfloor heating," and she said, "You can do this as long as at the right time I can get this extension put on the back of our house so we can turn it into the house we really wanted." So yeah, and that's the house we've just sold. so yeah, and it was a great vision, and it was a good negotiation, because I said all right then, and we ended up doing it.
so she visualized what she wanted,
Yeah,
what she was
yeah,
going
yeah,
to get
yeah,
out of it.
yeah, and her vision is incredible. And I think when they say um, the most important decision you're going to make in your life is who you spend your life with, um, that seems to be true. Clearly, I've only got my own life experience to really be able to base it on, but it's not necessarily a bed of roses. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that everything's easy, but having well, loving somebody is important, but having that ability to be able to have those kind of conversations um, and really test each other and really encourage each other, and basically um, you see things in somebody else, and you want to see them happy. um, it's about, I suppose, knowing when to ask the question, when to push back, when to say no, and when to say go for it, and accepting that sometimes you're going to get it wrong, and you need to have that sort of fallback position. And with this one, it was a case of, well, do you believe that you can make this work? And it's like, well, yes, I can. And actually, the other thing she asked me about was the people that I was going to be doing this with. What do you know about them? You got this belief in yourself. That's great, but what's your belief like in these other people? Because no one ever does anything all on their own in life. You need a good team, and you need the right people around you. So she asked brilliant questions about that as well. So she's I've got a lot to thank her for.
So she had faith in you, in your ability to do it. Where did your faith in your ability to do it come from? Because I mean, did you have huge amounts of experience in running a business of that size, or in the underfloor heating industry?
So I did have experience in the underfloor heating industry from about a decade prior. So I had, and this is where being a kind of an intrapreneur, i.e., kind of entrepreneurial, working in a business, can actually help you to teach you some lessons. So I had been on the team to acquire an underfloor heating business in a previous life, and learn the good and the bad of how that went, and how that was integrated. And what was it? It was that drive. It was that drive to really want to, and that belief that I could make a difference in this business, because I did my due diligence. I didn't just kind of go, oh, there's the first opportunity, because it wasn't the first opportunity. I did knock a couple back beforehand. And I really feel aligned with this business and what this business's mission is. And helping people heating homes in the best possible way is the purpose of New Heat. And that might not sound like an immediately obvious kind of really visceral passion, but if you think about it, people who are developing their own houses and building their own homes or whatever it might be, they're creating a kind of a dream home for themselves and for their lives. And so actually what you're helping somebody to do is to create the kind of environment where magic happens, with sort of, family and all of that kind of thing. So yeah, and then with the environmental impact of fossil fuels, New Heat provides heat pumps, and so it's low carbon heating. So it's also doing some good for the planet as well as doing some good for people, and it's a really quality product. This has turned into a bit of a pitch for New
That's
Heat, accidentally.
and you didn't mention it's also more economical than using sort of radiators.
It is 40% more efficient to run.
40%. I didn't know it was that high.
Yeah. Well, with a heat pump, and 25% with a gas boiler.
Well,
So
there's a reason the Romans invented it, I suppose.
exactly. It's the Egyptians, in fact.
Was it Egyptians?
The Egyptians, yeah, the Egyptians invented everything. Everything that's attributed to either the Romans or the Greeks. I think the Egyptians had a hand in first. Right. So yeah. Bless them.
So, sorry, I'm pushing on the underfloor heating here. I don't know why. So, New Heat was an existing business then that you were part of, or you saw the opportunity of.
Yeah.
How did you see an opportunity to take it from where it was to where you wanted it to go?
So, yeah, as a business, it had, well, one, it had a great product, and two, it had a lot of brand equity. There's a lot of equity in the brand, and I suppose three, I could see opportunities to expand the reach and the impact. I could see opportunities to grow from the point of view of the number of customers, and I could see opportunities to, if you like, grow the value of the relationship with those customers. I believe that the differentiators of the business were unique, and this is one thing that I that kind of really struck home. Actually, if you look at many markets, you do get the occasional scenario where there's one player with one real key differentiator, and that really sets them apart. But actually, if you look at a lot of companies, a lot of them are sort of saying the kind of same thing. And New Heat has three key differentiators, which, if you look at any of their competitors, they're the only one that's got all three. And so again, that really set it apart. It was pretty well invested already. So things like systems and skills and all of those kind of things were pretty well invested already. So it was a case of maximizing that and building that up. The thing that was needed was leadership. So obviously the founders had done a massively brilliant job, and I got so much respect for the founders of that business who basically took it from a garage in Sidmouth, sleepy Sidmouth in Devon, to be in this kind of national market leading company. But there was that sometimes like I say, what gets you to where you are isn't necessarily going to get you any to where you could be, and part of that was down to them, what they wanted to do for their lives as well. But what you get sometimes in family-owned businesses is lots of deference, and quite rightly, to the founders. However, if you can create a situation where you've got a leadership team that's really well empowered and equipped with the skills, not just the technical skills to do the good job, or to do the technical part of the job, but also the leadership skills to be able to work together to make the right decisions, to align the team, to set the vision, to respond well in a crisis, and to really coach and mentor each other to be even better, then you can really take it to new heights. So that was a really key initial thing to do, was to make sure that we had leaders all over the business who could really, own it, in the same sort of style to the way that I was doing it, but not in a financial point of view, but from the point of view of owning the relationships with customers, owning to delivering service at the highest possible level, to really make the brand promise come to life.
So you put the right people in the right place and empowered them to make the decisions.
Yeah. And lots of the right people were there. Lots of the right people were there. In fact, loads of them are still there. So if you're listening, hiya. They're a brilliant group of people who really cared, and I'm sure the founders wouldn't mind me saying this. When they were looking for somebody to take it on, they were looking for somebody to take it on with the same spirit and the same ethos that it had, but not necessarily the same approach, because a different approach was going to be needed to really take it on to the next level and make it attractive to a buyer as well.
You've pretty much taken my next question there, because whenever somebody invests in a business or buys a business, there is always a plan at the end of it. And that plan is some kind of exit strategy. So what was that for you, or what is that still for New Heat?
So so New Heat has been sold. So and there was always an exit plan. It was private equity backed. So private equity are generally involved in a business for maybe a 3 to 5 year horizon. Sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. It just depends. And they will, when they look at a business and whether a business is, how investable a business is, exit routes is one that they'll be looking at. And New Heat was in fact sold to a trade buyer, to a FTSE 250 company called Genuit, which is a great home for the business. It's again, there's a lot of alignment from the point of view of some of the values. There's different routes to market. New Heat retains its identity because there's a collection of different brands that are part of this group, and they're all focused on that same ultimate goal, which is about enabling sustainable living, which is kind of right at the heart of what the Genuit businesses do. But that wasn't the only option as an exit route. There could have been others. So potentially, one thing that makes you attractive as a business to a buyer is having a good management team, having a really strong management team who can lead the businesses and take it forward. So building that strong leadership team. I mean, the business needed it, but for the best possible exit, the business needed it as well. And what that could have done is resulted in a secondary buyout. So there were members of the leadership team that would potentially have gone on the same journey that I did. Again, putting some money in, perhaps with some share options, perhaps with some support from private equity, or the same leadership team that I was part of could potentially have gone again with a new investor, because these private equity companies, they have their kind of target levels that they want to get in. They want to write a check for whatever it might be, 8 million, 20 million, 50 million. They've got their kind of levels that they want to write a check for, and then they want to take the business and either, I suppose, grow the profitability of the business and sell it for the same multiple of profit, because that's how a lot of businesses are valued, or grow the multiple because they want to buy a business and put it together with other businesses that do a similar kind of thing, and then you get
group,
that sort of group arbitrage, or which is a fancy word that means something clever, which I can't remember the definition of it. But basically, it means that if you say, for example, it's about another way of saying leverage in a way. If you buy a business for 2 or 3 times its profit and put it together with a business that's worth 8 times its profit, then all of a sudden, straight away, almost without doing anything, you've kind of increased the value of that that smaller business or lower value business by associating it with the other one. That's one way arbitrage can work. So different routes also could have been refinancing, and moving the proportion of equity and shares to debt, to enable the business to grow. And it's about investment. It's about investment for a return. And the private equity investors that we work with in that scenario, brilliant. Most important thing to look out for when you're looking at investors, or indeed any kind of partner, is that chemistry, because you really need to know the chemistry is going to work. It's all great when things are going well, but sometimes things are tough, and you need to know that you can have really open, honest conversations. So obviously when you're looking for investors, money is important, but the chemistry is probably as important, and knowing that they're going to ask you really good questions, but also trust you to crack on with it. They're the things that I would look for in investors.
Well, as you've mentioned money, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, without asking you personal questions, what was the value of the business when you got in, and what was the value of the business when you got out?
So it was bought for 8 million and sold for 27.
That's not too bad.
Mm.
That's all right.
Yeah. Good growth.
That shows your wife's not a bad judge of character.
No, exactly. No. It was
how long a spell was that as well?
4 years. 4 years.
4 years.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible growth in 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was the main driver for that growth, do you think?
So it's in a good market. Still is. In a good market. It's this whole thing about the climate emergency that we're in, and I'm not the type to glue myself to buildings and all that kind of thing. I think there's different ways of going about expressing views on that kind of thing. But it's a market that is needed. It's got all of these kind of positive drivers going for it. I think there's a lot of need for education and for people about things like renewable heat sources and that kind of thing. We've got in this country, we've got 20 odd million homes that leak energy in the form of heat, and probably in the form of power as well, like nobody's business. And we've got to find a way of sorting that out. And so being part of this Genuit group now, again, is a really good place for New Heat to be, because New Heat helps a sort of a certain kind of customer, a certain kind of installer, heating engineer, to really understand the technology and the opportunities of that technology, and is trying to move the kind of the mindset of an industry, if you like, that's done very well out of burning fossil fuels, and done that in a way that's meant that, okay, you haven't needed to insulate the house quite as well, perhaps, because you can just crank up the temperature.
Yeah.
And you read different numbers, about the impact that buildings has from a carbon point of view. The last thing I is more than half the carbon that we create, that's sort of doing the damage, comes from people in buildings. So there's a lot of work to be done, and the Genuit group looks at not just the heating side of things, but also how we can help house builders build more sustainably, solve some of the problems that come from that. There's that tension between building stuff as cost effectively as you can, or with that kind of sort of life cost benefit, if you like, of that, the environmental impact, as well as the running costs, as well as the cost of the products that go into a building. But also people need help and assistance with that as well, because there are lots of people who are living in homes that are leaking energy, and with the cost of energy as it is right now, they need some help to be able to reduce and minimize that. And one thing I really like about the way, I mean, it's a struggle in a way, but the way the market's going is that we're going to have to address the problem of poorly insulated buildings, and we're going to have to address the problem of people feeling like they can't turn the heating on, or choosing either heat or heat or eat. That was the thing. We're going to have to address some of these problems, and there's a lot of pressure on government to actually do something meaningful to make this happen. And yes, and being part of for New Heat to be part of a group that's going to potentially solve that problem is a great opportunity.
Wow. Well, that was almost inspiring there for a moment where it sounded like a political speech.
Got quite passionate then, didn't it?
It did get quite passionate. One final question about New Heat.
Okay.
Now that you've sold the business and you're out, what next for you? Are you looking for something else to invest in, or are you off to the Seychelles for 1,000,000 years?
Not for that long, no. So I invest in several different businesses. I love business. I'm still with New Heat, and I take my responsibilities at New Heat very, very seriously. And so working to develop and grow that now as an employee is one of the things that I'm doing. But I'm also investing in companies that do solve problems. So businesses that are profitable businesses, and that are going to generate a financial return, as well as solving a problem that society might have. So whether that be in industries like the care industry, or a provision of healthy water, healthy products and services, for enabling families to come together and live together. They're the kind of benefits, the kind of businesses that I invest in. And also leadership, because I think one thing that the world needs right now, more than anything else, is good leaders. The way that we're set up right now, it seems to potentially bring us into conflict, and from a politics point of view, but also from I suppose there are different factions, if you like, in society, which spend a lot more time talking about what the wrongs of the other, whereas if you could invest that time in how you can collaborate to create a solution to a problem, then you're going to be able to make a difference. And for me, that comes down to leadership, both personal leadership and organizational leadership. So I'm getting involved in putting together programs and advice. I produce my own podcast called People with Purpose, and that's about sharing stories of people that have identified their purpose and gone about it. And it doesn't have to be this, like I say, this great kind of world-changing mission. It can be something as simple as wanting to help your neighbor, or whatever it might be. But I mean, one of my last guests on the podcast runs a cheese shop. So finding passion in cheese.
Who doesn't love cheese?
Yeah, well, who doesn't love it, right?
Exactly.
What's not to love? But the story of Jen and Ali Grimstone Jones is a brilliant one, because they're just really, really passionate about it. And what they do is that they sell cheese, right? But they also provide a resource and a centre for a local community, which comes together and an environment where people can get together and make friends and be part of a community. And that sounds like a really Okay, yeah, fine, whatever. But actually, that kind of thing is really important to people and makes a massive difference to people's lives. So spreading the word around purpose and finding what floats your boat, and yeah, investing some of your time to go after it. I'm a massive advocate of that because yeah, if more people on the planet could find a passion and really go after doing something to bring it to life, then I think the world will be a much better place.
Do you know I was going to finish up by asking you about the podcast, which you just went into seamlessly anyway, but it's only just clicked on me because obviously you're looking for businesses obviously that are profitable, but they also have the right people and they have a purpose to what they do. And your podcast is People with Purpose, which is exactly the businesses you're looking to invest in.
Yeah. Also, I don't think profit should. Well, it kind of works, doesn't it? All the P's. I don't think. I don't think. Also, I don't think profit should be a dirty word either. Genuinely, I do not. I don't. I believe that profit is good as long as profit follows purpose. Then you're on to a winner. Okay, some people could have a purpose that's not socially acceptable and all that kind of stuff. I'm kind of cutting through all of that and saying that if you can find a passion, find a purpose, and you find it inside you more often than not, and you can create a profitable venture. And if you look at the word wealth. It is as much about well-being as it is about money, and if you can look at it in its most holistic sense, hopefully you make some money. What you decide to do with that money will do some good for somebody else, and yeah, I think I would like to see. I'm happy to give money to businesses that are doing good things, and yeah, you trust them. There's a lot of issues with trust as well. So again, do your due diligence. But yeah, I think business is a really, really brilliant vehicle for doing good. And those people that take a risk with their livelihoods, with their house, whatever, deserve rewards. And if those profits are reinvested in, and again, doing more good and making more of a difference, then all the better.
It's the circle of life.
Certainly is.
And as you said, you're happy to invest in businesses that are doing good. No doubt you're going to get a few people contacting you after this. What's the best way for someone to get in touch with you, whether it's about investing in a business or talking to you about a business potential or about your podcast?
So the podcast is called People with Purpose. It's on all channels. So yeah, feel free to listen in. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm currently I'm a bald guy with glasses, and I've got a blue background on all my social media profiles. My name is the most boring and common name on the planet. People can't find me on Strava, let alone on Facebook. But yeah, David Roberts, People with Purpose. If you Google that, all the links are on there.
Bald guy with glasses. I like the way you said currently a bald guy with glasses.
Well, you never know, do you?
Yeah, there might be a full head of hair next week. Who knows? You
never know.
It's possible. It's possible.
Yeah. Put your mind to it.
What I'll do is I'll pop all of those links below the podcast as well. So on the video on YouTube or on Apple, whatever you're listening to it on, there'll be links below there, so you can get in touch with David on there. So thank you very much for all being on the podcast. I've loved it. I've loved the really weird way we segued into a grilling on buying a business. I wasn't expecting that. I'm sure you weren't either.
No. Good. I'll listen back. It'd be interesting to see what I said.
It will. Well, yes. Yeah. Did I say anything I shouldn't have done? I'm not sure.
Yeah. But we're back to the editors again. Hopefully they'll help me out there.
I'm sure the editors, well, they don't help me out, do they? But there we go. Anyway, thank you very much for being on the podcast. Totally appreciate it. Loved it.
Been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.